Listen, you mentioned New England. That's where I want to start. And what I like to call the evolution of Joe Mazzulla, meaning you covered a handful of games when he played at West Virginia. I know you were an assistant coach as well at Providence. So I'm sure the New England area, means a lot to you and has a place in your heart. Talk to me about that, and talk to me about Joe Mazzulla, the player.
Yeah, absolutely. My first coaching job, I'm one of the very few people in the state of Rhode Island that coached at both PC and URI, Providence and Rhode Island. Mm-hmm. And for people who don't know around the country, we talk about Alabama, Auburn, Texas OU. There's no more heated rivalry that I've ever been a part of than Providence and URI because of the size of the state, Travis. And I coached at URI right out of college, 1980, believe it or not. It's a long time ago. And then I went back to Providence with Rick Barnes in 1989 until 92 before I became a head coach. So, I know all about seafood, clam chowder, quahogs. And by the way, we all know, Auntie, Rhode Island is a hidden gem when it comes to summer vacations.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. It's an unbelievable place. But great memories of being in Rhode Island because of that great rivalry. And, of course, some really good players have come out of Rhode Island through the years. Marvin Barnes, Ernie DiGregorio, among others. And then a little left-handed point guard from Providence by the name of Joe Mazzulla, who was the crazy thing about Joe, as I look back on his college career, is he played for two of the best college coaches really maybe in the last 30, 40 years.
Wow.
In Bob Huggins and John Beilein. And those two guys were completely opposite from each other. Beilein, the professor, incredible offensive mind. Huggins, the opposite, more defense and offense, toughness, grit. And when I watch Joe and listen to Joe from afar now, I did cover his games when he was at WVU. I think they won an NIT title when I went with Coach Beilein and Joe. But when I think of Joe, obviously it's the toughness and the grit that comes to mind. Not realizing in subsequent years how cerebral, and when I say cerebral, I don't mean just, hey, he's a smart point guard. But from when I watch him from afar, this guy thinks so far ahead of the curve, so far outside the box. When you're coaching NBA guys, you can't trick them. They know, and I've always been impressed with how Joe is constantly staying ahead of the game.
Yeah, you brought up Coach Huggins, obviously, in West Virginia, and I got to go back to that for just a quick second. What of Coach Huggins' philosophy has Joe kind of emulated in his now coaching philosophy with the Celtics? And what's something that the media and the fans aren't really noticing about Joe that you notice from a young age on to now?
Well, it's a great question, Auntie. When you coach in the NBA, and I have a son that's in the NBA right now, and I have many, many friends, obviously, in the league, coaching friends, it's a different game. It's a different sport. It's the difference between speaking Spanish and speaking Portuguese. And that's for my New England friends, by the way, my Fall River friends, because there's a lot of Portuguese, obviously, in Boston and down in Rhode Island. But no, honestly, I think he took the best of Coach Huggins. You can't scream and yell at NBA players. Because as you guys know, they'll tune you out.
Right.
But Coach Huggins brought, I think, Joe had the toughness when he got to West Virginia. He wasn't highly recruited. And so I think Coach Huggins brought a certain mental toughness, how to handle adversity. Coach Huggins, when you play for him, he puts you under a lot of adverse conditions in practice, trust me. And so when I watch Joe, I think he's got that toughness. He always had it coming out of Rhode Island, tough background. Coach Huggins brought it out of him. And then I think he still has it now, but he uses it a different way with his team. When I watch him again from afar, he's demanding, he's direct, he's honest. He'll tell players like Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum and some of the others, these guys are superstars. This is how I want it done. But you do it in a different way, a more artful way, a more cajoling way. When you're dealing with highly intelligent NBA players, you got to do it in a different way. But I think that toughness and that the ability to get across his point, maybe in a different way than Huggs did, but he still got that, and I think that's one of the things that I see from him.